So this is an intro to Photoshop, and you can see what we're going to end up doing is doing this design that has an apple and some text and other things using brushes. So you're in Photoshop, you want to do File, New. And choose Print for the type letter. Make sure it's set to inches, and the second man will make this landscape. Our resolution, because we're working in print, should be 300 pixels per inch. Our color mode is RGB for red, green, and blue light, which is our monitor, how we see color in our monitor, and 8-bit for the bit depth. Hit Create. So the first thing we're going to do is make a new layer. So you should go under Window, Workspace, and Essentials, or you may need to do Reset Essentials, which is what I'm going to do. And what that, by resetting it, it just gives you panels over here that are nice and neat and in order. So you want to find your Layers panel and click on the new layer icon, which is at the bottom of it, next to the trash can. Double click the L in layer 1. If you just double click it, it won't work. You'll come up with a menu. So just double click the L, and let's name that Apple. And we're going to make an apple. So to do the apple, we're going to use a shape tool. So if you go about almost to the bottom of your toolbar, you'll probably see a rectangle. Mine, I saw a starfish. But click and hold on that and get the ellipse tool. Up in the option bar at the top, up here, make sure it's set to path and hold the shift key and you'll get a perfect circle. So just kind of make a circle about 3 or 4 inches, and as I drag this you can see that the width and height are changing. Because this is a path and not pixels, you can only move it with the black arrow. So take the black arrow off your toolbar and just kind of move it to the center. Now we want to make this more apple shape, so we're going to click and hold on that black arrow and get the direct selection tool, which is the white arrow. We need to select only one point. Right now all 4 points are selected, so I'm going to click off. Just touch the bottom point and drag it down a tad like that. Okay. Now we want to fill this. We're going to fill this with a gradient. So in order to get a gradient, you need to fill the foreground and background colors. They kind of are like fill and stroke in Illustrator, not really, but they're in the same position. So double click the foreground color, choose a dark red, then double click the background color, and I click on that red again with my eyedropper tool and just choose like a lighter version of the red, maybe something like that. On your toolbar you have a gradient tool, grab that. Once you have that tool in your hand, you'll see the option bar at the top has options pertaining to that particular tool. You want to click on the gradient editor, which is that thing, choose foreground to background, and make sure you only have 2 of these stops. There's 1, there's 2. If you have more, for some reason, just take 1 and pull it straight down. Then hit OK. Make sure that your gradient type is set to linear, which is the first one, right next to the gradient editor here. And we need to make this a selection, this path. So if you go to your paths, it's right here. And if you don't see it, go under Window and then Paths and you'll find it. You'll see the path that you made of the apple. Go to the bottom of the path panel. The third button in is Load Path as a selection. Click on that and we have marching ants. Now I have my gradient tool in my hand, my foreground and background color, marching ants on an apple. I'm just going to click and drag from one side of the apple to the other. Doesn't matter where. Actually, it does matter where. Let's make it, we want it dark on the bottom. So I'm going to go from the bottom up. And if I pull further up, the more higher I pull on this, the darker it extends up. So that looks good. To get rid of the marching ants, I'm just going to do Command D, which is deselect. So you know how an apple has like a little depression here where the stem comes out? We're going to do that with what's known as the burn tool. So if you look on your toolbar and you see what looks like a lollipop, that's not it. If you see what looks like a hand, that's it.
Did you not show up today? Or?
No.
Okay, just checking.
All right. So the burn tool is, you want the burn tool, the one that looks like a hand. up in the option bar, set the exposure to below 50, and let's leave it to midtones. Depending on what color you're burning on, you would change this to shadows, highlights, or midtones. So if it never works, if you try it once and it doesn't work, try playing with that. But for this, it'll work. So also we want a nice soft brush. So it should look like a cotton puff ball. And then just go like that. And now you have like a little depression. I can use the right bracket key to make this brush tip a little bigger, which I'm going to do. And I'm just going to add more shading down there to kind of give it a 3D look. Conversely, if I click and hold and you grab the dodge tool, it does the same thing, but it does it to highlight. So I'll make that a little bigger, and then maybe at the very top add a little more highlights, and that even makes it more 3D-y. Now we're going to make a stem. So you're going to make a new layer. Go back to layers, and again, the icon next to the trash can makes a new layer. Double click the L, name it stem. A stem should be brown, so double click the foreground color, choose like a brown. Put the brush in your hand, the normal paintbrush. There's 3 brushes that you might see. You might see the color replacement tool or the art history tool. You want just the brush. Just click, it looks like a brush. And then we want to go under brushes. So go under window, brushes, and then click on brush settings. Choose the first brush, number 30, which is a nice soft one, and just adjust the spacing at the bottom so it's spaced way out. Make sure all these are checked off, nothing else is checked. And now I'm going to use the right bracket key and just make this a little bigger. Actually not that big. And the left bracket key to make it smaller, and just paint a stem on here. And what went wrong? It's because I have the spacing. I told you wrong. It should be at 0 or 1. There we go. Okay. Now you can use that dodge and burn again if you like on this. So I'm going to use the dodge, make it a little smaller, and then on this, maybe make it a little lighter. It's hard to see, I know, on the monitor. There you can see it's getting a little color. And then the burn tool, I'll do on the bottom of the stem. Wrong tool. Burn tool. And so I'm just darkening that a little bit here and there. Okay, so that's the stem. Now we're going to make a leaf. So let's make a new layer again. Double click the L, name it leaf. Go back to where you got the ellipse tool to make the apple. Click and hold, find the custom shape tool. Again, make sure it's set to path. You want to click up here where it says shape. And if you don't see all the things that I see here, go under this little cogwheel, click and hold, and go to all. Click on all and then hit OK. All right, and then you want the leaf that looks like a traditional leaf, like this. And if you hold the shift key, it'll go nice proportion. Just drag it out to about the size you want. Again, this is a path, not pixels. So to rotate this, which we want to do, we have to use our black arrow, touch it, and then Command T or Edit Free Transform, and you can just rotate it and put it by the stem. And then you hit return on your keyboard to complete that transformation. We're going to do 3 colors in our gradient. The apple we did 2 colors. This one we're going to do 3. We have to start with 2 because we only have 2 foreground and background. So choose a dark green. And then for the background, choose a lighter version of that green. Put your gradient tool in your hand. Go to paths. Click on the 3rd button in to make that leaf a selection. Go back to layers, make sure you're on the leaf layer. You've got your gradient tool in your hand, you've got your 2 colors. Click on the gradient editor, and we're going to add a slider. I think I was telling everyone to hold the option key. Just go like this. Just drag the light one to the middle, and then just click here, and it'll add another one. Oh, I know why I did that. Never mind. Sorry. So go to the first slider, the dark one, hold the option key and drag, and you'll get a copy of it. Then release the option and just drag You still lose the color. Okay, so we want to double click this and choose a dark green. So now we have dark green, light green, dark green. And then hit OK. We have our gradient in our hand. We have it set to linear gradient and just go like this. And now you have like a little stripe there. Do Command D. And again, let's add some shading. Grab your burn tool and let's add the shading on the apple. So go to the apple layer and right where the leaf, maybe like that a little bit. And then let's go to the leaf layer. And if you want to add, like if mine looks way too dark or way too light, I'm just going to make my brush bigger and kind of go over it here and there. That looks good. Okay, so that's the leaf. Oh, you know how an apple has specks on it? I'm only showing you this because we're going to be painting with brushes, so bear with me even though it kind of doesn't look like specks. So make a new layer and just name it specks. Go to your custom shape tool again. Click and hold and find the teardrop. Hold the shift key, drag, go to the path panel, make it a selection by hitting the third button, fill it with black, edit, fill. When this comes up where it says contents, click and choose black, hit OK. Command D to deselect it. So when you, any shape brush that you can make, let's say I have a photo of my dog, I can take a photo and make it a grayscale, black and white, and make a brush tip out of my dog. Or you can draw any shape you want and fill it with black, and it'll become a brush. So we've got this black tear shape. You're going to take the rectangular marquee, second tool on the toolbar, and just click and drag. Second tool, rectangular marquee. Click and drag to make like marching ants around that thing. And then go under Edit, Define Brush Preset, name it whatever you want, and hit OK. Now hit delete so it disappears. Command D to deselect. Put your brush in your hand. Again, make sure you have the regular brush. Click on the foreground color and choose a gold. Go to your brushes. So you might have to do window brushes. Go to brush settings and find your teardrop shape. Here's mine. Adjust the spacing to 1000% and make sure everything else is checked off. Now, come out here, and that's ridiculously large, right? So I'm going to do the left arrow and make it small like a little speck on an apple. But it needs to be rotated. So right here, if you take this arrow, you can kind of see when you move that arrow the direction that the brush goes in. So I'm going to put one here and here and here, and now I'm going to adjust the angle and adjust the angle more. It's a little tedious, but that's what makes it interesting. Okay, and now I'm going to come back this way, do another row, like here and here, here, maybe a little bit, turned a little bit more, not that much. Here, and then my third row, I'm going to make my brush a little bigger. Like that. And then I have to start going this way. Well, not that much. Like here. Here. No, that looks bad. There, that looks pretty good. All right, so there's something else you can do. You can kind of warp these. So we're on the specs layer. You've drawn one brush tip at a time, these little specks. Then go under Edit, Transform, Warp, and you get this grid-like thing. Let me try that again. Edit, Transform, Warp. Okay, make sure you have the black arrow in your hand when you do it. Now, when I move these points, you can see they're direction handles. So you can kind of pull this out, Maybe move this one down to just make it conform a little bit more to the shape of the apple, like that. And then let's hit return. I have a speck on my leaf, so I'm going to bring my leaf above the speck. There we go. If this looks really fake, you can go to the specs layer and just lower the opacity right on the layers panel a little bit to make it look more realistic. Okay, so that was how to just use a brush to apply one at a time. Now we're going to do another custom brush. So we're going to change the foreground and background colors to red and green like the apple again. I already have a green there, so I'm just going to click this and choose a red. Hit OK. Go back to your custom shape tool. Click and find one of these brushes that looks like a heart with a vine in it. This. Again, hold the Shift key, click and drag. Go to Paths, make it a selection. Edit Fill. Choose black. Contents black. Hit OK. Woo. Edit Fill. Choose black. Why did that come in at 50%? Oh, I know why. Because I'm on the layer. I'm still on the layer with specs, and I lowered the opacity on that. Let's make a new layer and name it texture. How about that? Or pattern. Let's move that layer just below the apple layer. Okay, and now do Edit Fill and choose black. Do Command D to deselect. Grab your rectangular marquee tool. Click and drag a selection around it. Edit Define Brush Preset. Name it whatever you want. Hit delete. Command D deselects. Okay, so now put your brush in your hand. Go to your brush engine again and go to Brush Settings. Find that brush tip you just made. Where is it? Adjust the spacing so it's like, I don't know, in the 600s or 800s, something like that. Click on Shape Dynamics and make sure you click on the actual word and not just the check mark. When you click on the actual word, you get a whole new menu here. Put the size jitter to 100%. That means that it'll go from very tiny to larger. Let's just leave that. Angle jitter put at 100%. That means some of them will be upside down, some will be right side up. Go to scattering, click on scattering until you see a new menu. Make sure both axes is selected so it goes horizontal and vertical. And let's do the amount in the 800 somewhere. The count, leave it under 5, otherwise it's too much. Count jitter you can put at 100%. Skip them all, go to color dynamics, and you want foreground and background jitter to 100 and everything else at 0. Now you can come out here and kind of see how big your brush tip is. I'm going to make mine a little bigger and then just kind of click, click, click and drag, click, click, here and there. So I'm getting some small, some big. If you've got too many or anything like that, just take your lasso tool and you can click circle around it, the ones that you don't want, and you can just circle it and then hit delete, like if there's some you don't want. All right, so now the next thing we're going to do is, oh, I forgot to do the pillow emboss. Oh well. We're going to do a background of a diamond gradient. So make a new layer. Actually, sorry, you don't need to do that. Double click the background layer, please, and then just hit OK, and the padlock will disappear. For the foreground color, choose a gold, and if you want to click on the gold speck from the apple, that's fine. I'm gonna make, yeah, that looks good. And then the background color, let's make it white. Okay. Do Command A to select everything and hit delete so that there's no white background. You have a transparent background. Command D deselects. We've got our gold and our white. Put your gradient in your hand. Click on the gradient picker. I have 3 sliders, don't I? Because of the one we did. So first I'm going to do is click on the first little thing up here, which is foreground to background. Now it's gold to white, and that third slider disappeared. Hit OK. Go from the center of your apple and click and drag outward to the corner. But I made a mistake. I forgot. Command Z. You want to make this a diamond shape. So here is linear, there's radial, the very last one here is diamond. There you go. Wow, that's really low. It's not very bright, is it? I'm going to change my gold. There we go. That looks better. Now let's give the apple an outer glow. So click on the apple layer. FX stands for effects. So we're on the apple layer. At the bottom of the layers panel, you'll see the FX for effects. Click on outer glow. Yours is going to be white right here, this thing. So click on that and choose an orange, like a pumpkin orange. And change the blend mode to normal. The opacity, you can do whatever you want. I don't care. The spread and the size, you want more size than spread. Because look, if you get them too close together, it gets like a really rough edge. Do you see that? But if you put them further apart, now it's a real soft edge. And I'm going to lower my opacity because that's too much. And then hit OK. So there you have it. So far we've done 3 gradients, right? We did the leaf, the apple, and the diamond gradient. You've done brushes because you did scatter brushes for this, and you did each brush on its own for this pattern on the apple. We're going to do another brush now, which is called stroke path with brush. So we're going to end up making this thing. See these little white things? That's it. Okay, so grab your pen tool, which is somewhere in the lower half of your toolbar, pen tool. And the pen tool, you can make curves or straight lines. We're going to keep it easy and just do straight lines. Make a new layer. Name it Sparkles. And move it below the apple layer. Now we have the pen tool from the center. You're going to click and then drag out, or I'm sorry, don't drag. Click and release the mouse, and then just come out here in the gradient somewhere and click somewhere else. So now you have one path, one line segment. If I were to click again, it would continue on. We don't want to do that. So we have to deselect this. In order to do that, you have to hold the command key. Notice when I hold the command key, I get a white arrow. I can just click anywhere on my canvas, and that path is deselected. Now release the white arrow. You have the pen tool back in your hand. Go back to this near the center of the apple. Click, hold the command key, click to deselect, release the command key. Now you have the pen in your hand again. Click, command key. So we want an array of these little lines coming out. I'll make one more here. Okay, so make white your foreground color. You can just hit the letter X and it'll reverse the foreground and background. We've got sparkles. We're on the sparkle layer. Go put your brush in your hand. Go to your brush engine. Go to brush settings, brush tip shape, and choose tip number 8, which is on mine is the 3rd brush in. Keep the take shape dynamics off. Just check off shape dynamics, check off scattering, check off color, and adjust the spacing here so that it looks like a strand of pearls. Come out here and you can kind of see how big it is. You probably can't. I can, but you probably can't. I'm going to increase mine by using the right bracket key until it's about 15 to 20 pixels. 15 to 30, let's say that. All right, and now go to your path panel and click on the word work path. No, click off below it. Now click on it. All the paths are now selected. You have your brush in your hand. You're on the correct layer. The second button on the bottom of the path is stroke path with brush. Click that. And now you can click below the work path and you can see you've added sparkles. Almost done. Okay? So the next thing we're going to do is this, the word apple. So find the type tool. And in Photoshop, please don't click and drag when you start typing. You just don't want to do that unless you're writing like a paragraph of text. So just click, okay? Type the word apple, uppercase A, P-P-L-E, Now highlight that. Make it Hobo STD for the font right here, Hobo STD. Make the font size around 100. So if you click here, it doesn't go up to 100, right? It only goes up to 72. So you have to highlight it and manually put it in. The color, again, choose a red, apple red. How about like that? Now, this is not a path, it's pixels, so I can't use the black arrow to move it. I have to use the move tool. First tool on the toolbar, move it like this. So now we're almost done. We're going to see this little blur we have around the apple? That's what we're going to do. So in order to do that, we're going to take the apple layer. Notice I forgot to tell you, when you use the type tool and you just click, it makes its own layer. So bring that layer to the top. Make a copy of it by taking it and dragging it to the new layer icon. So now you have apple copy, an apple. Turn the eyeball off apple copy. Click on the apple layer. We're going to make it pixels so we can manipulate and destroy it. You can't do that with text. So to do that, you right click and you do rasterize type. Now it's pixels. We're going to add noise, which is just like a texture. So if you go under filter, noise, add noise, and you want to make sure monochromatic is checked, and just drag this amount until it looks like sandpaper kind of. Hit OK. Now we're going to, because it's got that sandpaper grit, we can blur it easily. So go under filter, blur, radial blur. You can't really see what it does. It just gives you this little picture. So I have mine like in the 60s or 70s. Hit OK. And you can see that blurred it. And if you think you did too much or not enough, just do Command Z and redo it. Now go back to the apple copy layer, put the eyeball on. Oh, I forgot about the arching thing. Okay, go to the apple copy layer, turn the eyeball on, click on that, and then up in the, put the type tool in your hand. So we get this option bar, otherwise it's gone. Up here in the option bar next to the color, you'll see this T with an arch. It says create warp text. Click on that, choose arc, and adjust the amount to your liking on the bend. And then take your move tool and position it over that arc. Now, let's do an effect on that, FX. Go down to the bottom of the layer, FX, and choose bevel and emboss. Do an inner bevel. And you have to adjust the size, depth, and the size and depth to your liking. So depending on, just play with that and then hit OK. And that's it.